Hello.
Where the hell are you? What's going on? Stop messing around.
Mike's voice was trembling over the phone. He seemed very angry. What? Why are you so worked up?
Worked up. It's John's graduation today. Where are you on your son's graduation day?
My son. When I asked with a raised tone, Mike shouted irritably.
John, all the other kids have their families with them at the graduation. I'm the only one here alone. Families are supposed to attend these things together.
He was clearly furious, but that didn't matter to me at all. I continued without a care. I don't have a family.
Huh.
Mike gasped softly on the other end of the line. Do they have no idea what they've been doing to me for the past 13 years? How they've treated me? If so, fine. Whether they're aware or not, I'll do things my way. I won't let them have their way anymore. My name is Anna. I'm a 40-year-old part-time housewife. I've been married to Mike, who often says being a housewife must be easy. I'm so jealous, for 13 years. He's been grumbling about me being a full-time housewife since we got married. But let's not forget, it was Mike who asked me to be a stay-at-home mom for the kids. Did he forget that he asked me himself? It's just not fair. After the kids got a bit older, he started saying things like, a housewife is just a jobless parasite. He constantly treated me like a freeloader. Mike's snide remarks increased as the kids grew older. It got so bad that I started working part-time a few years ago.
But it's just part-time work.
Now he sneers and nothing changes. Time flies. Our eldest son, Rick, is now 18, and our second son, John, is 15. Our sons, though, there's no blood relation between them and me. They are Mike's stepchildren. When I married Mike, the boys were 5 and 2. Time passed quickly, but it was never easy. I was told I probably couldn't have children. When Mike asked me out, I nervously told him this.
Living normally is fine, but you likely can have kids.
I'd been told this by my doctor due to irregular periods. So when I found out Mike had stepchildren, I was honestly relieved.
I didn't have a good eye for women, and these kids have suffered for it.
When we got engaged, Mike confessed this to me apologetically. I heard his ex-wife had cheated on him. So, I tried my best to comfort him. It's not your fault, the kids will be fine. Let's raise them together so they won't feel lonely.
Anna, thank you.
Mike's income was nothing to brag about. Ideally, I wanted to work full-time and support our household. But after hearing that, I couldn't.
I think it's very important for kids to have their mom at home. So, Anna, I want you to be a full-time housewife and make them feel secure.
All right, I understand. Managing on just Mike's income was incredibly difficult. We constantly reviewed our expenses, cutting down wherever we could. Entertainment and beauty expenses were, of course, trimmed, and I avoided buying clothes for myself as much as possible. But I couldn't let the kids go without. If anything had to be cut, it would be my stuff. I genuinely believed that.
Sorry to make you go through this, thank you.
At first, Mike appreciated it. But over time, he began to look down on me.
You're not pretty to begin with, and you're not young anymore. So why don't you work on yourself a bit? It's embarrassing.
I do wear makeup. I take care of myself as much as I can, but I don't have as much money or time as I did before we got married. It hurts when you say things like that. It's different from when I was single and only had to think about myself. The more time I spent taking care of the kids, the less time and money I had to spend on myself. Mike used work as an excuse to avoid doing any housework. I asked for his help a few times, but he always refused.
I trust you to handle everything, Anna. Besides, the kitchen is a woman's domain, right?
I never asked him to leave it all to me or to keep his hands off. Before we got married, I thought he was manly and wonderful, but he turned into a typical domineering husband. The kids were my only source of comfort. Right after we got married, the kids were 5 and 2. If they had been a little younger, they might not have been so shy, but Rick especially was very resistant to me.
I want mommy. You're not my mommy.
Rick. Holding the crying Rick, I almost cried too. Even so, I felt like they were starting to warm up to me, little by little. But then, an unexpected obstacle appeared. That is Mike. He should have been my biggest supporter, but I never expected someone so close to become my enemy. Mike probably couldn't stand the kids getting closer to me than to him.
Anna, you've gained weight, hadn't you? Look at that flabby body. It's proof you can take care of yourself. You guys don't want to end up like that, right? Good thing you're not related by blood.
He mocked my body and my appearance endlessly.
Once you stop caring about your looks, it's over. Anna's unemployed, so she doesn't meet people and loses any sense of beauty. You guys better be careful.
I couldn't stay quiet after that. Hey, can I talk to you for a second? It's one thing to think that or say it to me, but don't insult me in front of the kids. Of course, it made me feel terrible, but more importantly, I couldn't bear the thought of the kids picking up Mike's way of speaking. That was the one thing I wanted to avoid. Kids are still growing and absorb everything, both good and bad. Mike, their father, was openly looking down on me, their mother, even if I'm not their biological mother. I didn't want them to see that.
What's that? You're just upset because I hit a nerve, right? Don't use the kids as an excuse.
Yeah, it hurts to hear that, but I'm really worried about the kids' future.
Shut up. Stop blaming others. I'm not insulting you. I'm just stating facts. It's ridiculous to say we can't speak the truth.
Even though I explained calmly, Mike flew into a rage and wouldn't listen anymore. Instead, his insults towards me escalated. And whenever I tried to discipline the kids, Mike would invariably interfere. Hey Rick, look, there are still some small veggies left on your plate. Let's finish everything, okay? During the meal, I noticed the scattered vegetables left on Rick's plate and casually pointed it out. From beside me, I heard a loud sigh, and Mike grumbled irritably.
You're unemployed with no income, yet you sure are good at nagging.
It's the usual pattern. Mike looks at Rick and John, tilting his head as if seeking their agreement. I'm not nagging, I'm just pointing out manners, so they won't have trouble in the future.
Ha! You're going out of your way to do that for kids that aren't even yours.
I felt my head heat up. How could he say such things in front of the young children? I was too stunned to find the right words. I felt so pathetic. From that day, I started avoiding conflicts with Mike and tried to keep him in a good mood. I didn't want the kids to see us arguing. Mike was a simple person. As long as I flattered him, he stayed in a good mood. I knew this was the wrong way, but I couldn't think of any other way. Divorce would be the easiest solution, but what would happen to Rick and John then? I couldn't abandon them. So, I focused on keeping things as peaceful as possible. I did my best to make it my top priority. And then, before I knew it, 13 years had passed, bringing us to the present. The brothers, you were so young then, had been completely influenced by Mike. Their thinking mirrored his, even though their appearances didn't. Because Mike belittled me in front of the kids, they started to think it was normal. They began to insult me openly.
Hey, wait a minute.
Rick called out to me, frowning.
My friends are coming over tomorrow. You should go out. It would be embarrassing if they saw you. If you were younger and prettier, I wouldn't have to deal with this. It's such a hassle.
All right. It wasn't just teenage embarrassment. He genuinely thought I was an embarrassment. I had become accustomed to such hurtful remarks as they were repeated over and over.
Oh, leave some money before you go. And did you iron the clothes I asked for? Also, the college application deadline is coming up. Take care of it.
Even though he said he was embarrassed to be seen with me, he still relied on me for everything. He had inherited this trait from Mike. Then John chimed in from the side.
Hey, did you check out the tutoring places for me? Oh, and don't forget, I've got a practice session tomorrow. You'll need to give me a ride.
Without waiting for my response, Rick and John returned to their rooms. To them, it was only natural to ask me to do things for them. There wasn't a shred of gratitude. It probably never even crossed their minds. At dinner, the root of all this and the brothers' role model, Mike, looked at me with a puzzled expression and brought up a subject.
You should start working and earning money.
What? Mike sighed dramatically and exaggeratedly slumped his shoulders.
Do you realize how long I've been supporting you? I've been lenient, but how many years have you been unemployed now? Are you thinking at all?
His words made me put down my fork in anger. I'm not unemployed. Since John started elementary school, I've been working part-time. That's right. When the kids were too young for school, I was a full-time housewife because it felt wrong to leave them alone. But once John started school, I took up a part-time job in the mornings. However, even though I started working part-time when John started elementary school, he frequently got sick. Each time, I had to apologize to my employer and take time off from work. When I had to take an entire week off, I pleaded with Mike to let me work at least one day. Just for a day, even half a day. Can't you watch John? I thought he could take my place for just one day since I'd been the one taking time off all this time. But his response was incredibly irresponsible.
Huh? No way. I'm busy with work. Can't you figure that out? No way. Why should I?
He said I'm busy with work. In other words, Mike didn't consider my part-time job to be real work. I knew from that moment how low his opinion of part-time jobs was, but I couldn't stand being treated as if I were unemployed. I'm working part-time, even though it's within the tax exemption limit. I earn $800 a month. When I argued against being called unemployed, Mike, Trick, and John all started laughing.
You say that so proudly. $800 is so pathetic.
Exactly. And how can you be so smug about it? That confidence is something else.
Mike looked triumphant, flaring his nostrils in pride at the boy's words.
Seriously, they are right. Besides, these guys don't need much help anymore, so you should start contributing more. Since you're not related by blood, we won't recognize you as family if you don't.
As I watched the three of them laughing together, something inside me, which I had tried to keep intact, started to crumble. I can't take it anymore. I can't keep pushing myself, or I'll break. For my own sake, I can't do this any longer. I'll fulfill my final obligations, and then leave this house. That day, I made a firm decision.
John's graduating from middle school tomorrow. It's such a relief to think he'll be a high schooler soon.
A few months after I made my decision, Rick was accepted into college, and John was about to graduate from middle school. At night, after the kids had returned to their rooms, I was washing dishes when Mike, in a good mood, drank his alcohol behind me.
Honestly, before I married you, I was really struggling with what to do.
Mike, slightly drunk and feeling good, started talking more.
My mom said she couldn't watch Rick and John anymore. I was thinking of putting them in a facility. But then I married you just in time. I'm really lucky.
I had vaguely heard this story from my mother-in-law shortly after getting married. Mike had taken in the kids, but had mostly left their care to his mother. For a woman nearing 60, taking care of young children must have been physically demanding. Eventually, she couldn't handle the burden anymore and told Mike to take responsibility. That's when he married me. Really, from start to finish, I've just been convenient for you. I'm amazed at myself.
Huh? What's the matter? Are you sulking? Don't be a pain. Once both of them get jobs, let's go on a trip or something. That should make you happy, right?
I deliberately made noise as I washed the dishes, pretending not to hear Mike's words. When I finished, I sat across from Mike and kept pouring him drinks. Here, drink more. Tomorrow is John's big graduation day.
Oh, that's right. You're finally being thoughtful.
Mike, pleased, drank glass after glass, his face turning red. In the end, there were so many bottles and cans scattered around that I couldn't tell how much he had drunk. The next day, I was riding the train with a clear mind. The graduation ceremony should be starting about now. I muttered to myself, gazing out the train window and enjoying the peaceful moment. When was the last time I felt this calm? I glanced at my phone, which was on silent mode, and saw a flood of missed calls. Most were from Mike. There were also a few missed calls from Rick. Judging by the number of missed calls, they must have been in a panic this morning. Normally, Rick and John were early risers. Even without my wake-up call, they would come downstairs on time. So, one of them must have found Mike asleep at the table this morning. I even left several alarm clocks around Mike as a favor. So, they probably didn't oversleep and miss the graduation ceremony. Well, the real problem starts from there. I left the suit, tie, and socks for the graduation ceremony in the closet and left the house. As a final act of kindness, everything was washed or dry cleaned. Normally, anyone would be able to dress themselves if everything was prepared like that. But Mike isn't normal. For the past 13 years, he has relied on me for everything. He probably didn't even know which suit to wear for the graduation ceremony. Normally, you'd prepare the night before. I know Mike wouldn't have done that. Even if he got drunk or passed out, he always had me to clean up the mess. I wonder how they felt when the person they depended on suddenly disappeared. I was curious about their reactions. Did they panic? Maybe they got furious. Either way, it doesn't matter to me now. After a while, the train arrived at my destination, and I got off with my luggage. As I walked through the ticket gate and turned off silent mode on my phone, it started ringing. It was a call from Mike. Hello.
Where the hell are you? What's going on? Stop messing around.
Mike's voice was trembling over the phone. What? Why are you so worked up?
Why? It's John's graduation ceremony. Where are you on your son's graduation day?
My son. When I asked with a raised tone, Mike shouted irritably.
John, all the other kids have their families with them at the graduation. I'm the only one here alone. Families are supposed to attend these things together. And you didn't even prepare my clothes. If my mom hadn't come over, it would have been a disaster.
I calmly responded to his complete misdirection and scapegoating. The fact that you can rely on your mother at your age for something like that is what's really concerning.
What did you say?
Mike's voice was furious. But that didn't matter to me. I continued without concern. And what do you mean by family?
Huh?
I cut him off. I don't have a family.
Huh?
Mike gasped softly on the other end of the line. In the past 13 years, I have never felt like I was treated as part of the family by any of you.
That's not true. What are you talking about? We ate, slept, and lived together. Isn't that what makes a family?
Being constantly insulted about my appearance and weight, mocked as an unemployed parasite, and treated like a maid. And now you call that a family? What are you talking about? Are you stupid? After I spoke quickly and forcefully, there was a brief silence before the call abruptly ended. A few minutes later, my phone rang again, this time from Rick. The timing was too perfect. Mike had probably contacted Rick in some way.
So, you had a fight with Dad, but you went too far. Dad was furious. If you apologize now, he'll probably forgive you. Hurry up and apologize and come home. Dinner will be late otherwise.
I sighed in exasperation. I don't know exactly how Mike explained our conversation to Rick. But neither Mike nor Rick ever thinks they are at fault. Their main concern is always their own well-being. That's why Rick said what he did earlier. He didn't even question why I would leave the house and miss John's graduation. Instead, he's worried about his dinner. Apologize, why? And you guys can handle dinner on your own. My words seemed to irritate him. Rick's tone became harsher.
What the hell? It's irresponsible to just leave like that. Don't you get it? Mom, Dad has been feeding you and taking care of you. I've always thought you should be more grateful for that.
Mike's words echoed in my head.
Who do you think is providing for you?
I've heard that line countless times. Mike's catchphrases have become ingrained in the kids like a curse. It's so outdated. Do they realize they are making things harder for themselves in the future? I sighed and spoke to Rick. You and John are just like Mike.
What are you talking about? Of course we are. He's our dad.
Yes, and that's why you should be careful. You're not suited for modern marriage.
What?
Rick sounded confused. Like Mike, he lacked self-awareness.
What? You're saying crazy things just because you're upset.
His voice shook, just like Mike's when he got agitated. Fine, anyway, there's something else I want to discuss, so I'll come by soon for a final goodbye. Can you tell Mike that?
A final goodbye? What do you mean? Wait, hey.
I'm not waiting, goodbye. Even after I hung up, the phone kept ringing, but I ignored it until it finally stopped. A month later, I went to Mike's house to settle things once and for all. When I rang the doorbell, Mike rushed to the door with loud footsteps.
Anna, you came back. I knew you would. I believed it.
After a month, Mike looked somewhat haggard. Maybe it was because he wasn't well groomed. And his clothes were rumpled and dirty, and he looked pale. More than anything, he seemed exhausted, with no energy left. As he approached and grabbed my shoulder, I quickly shook his hand off. Don't touch me, we're not family anymore.
What? What are you talking about, Anna? We're just taking a break to cool off, right?
No one ever said that. Mike had just convinced himself of that. It's amazing how he can come up with such convenient farts. In a way, it's impressive.
I was so happy because I thought you had finally come back to me.
No way, it's actually the opposite. I'm here today to settle things cleanly with you.
Settle things.
Mike's face twitched as he asked. I nodded. I want a divorce. Let's thoroughly discuss alimony and property division. When I entered the living room, it was empty. Rick and John, you should have been home, were nowhere to be seen. Where are the kids?
They're in their rooms. They don't know you're here. Should I call them?
No need. This was going to be a messy divorce discussion, not a pleasant chat. It's not something the kids needed to hear. Besides, it had only been a month since I left, yet the house had changed drastically. Clothes were scattered everywhere, and the table was cluttered with dirty dishes and plastic bags. The sink was so full of dishes that I couldn't see the bottom. There was no way to do the dishes in such a state. Ignoring the mess, I moved some things off a chair and sat down. "Shall we get started?" I wanted to settle this as quickly as possible. As soon as I sat down at the table, Mike kneeled at an unbelievable speed. "Kneeling? Please stop, that won't help, and it won't change my mind." Mike, still on the floor, shook his head vigorously.
Please, please don't divorce me. Over this past month, we've realized how important you were.
Mike's voice was desperate. In the past, I might have been swayed by this, but I had grown stronger over the years. Such childish tricks wouldn't work on me. Of course, without me, your slave, there's no one to do the housework or serve you.
A maid, that's not.
Mike averted his gaze. I smiled back at him. "All the housework you mocked me for was tough, right? All those small, tedious tasks. I knew someone as clumsy and impatient as you could never handle it."
What? How dare you?
Mike glared at me sharply. In his excitement, his nostrils flared as they usually did.
You act so high and mighty. I could handle the housework if I wasn't working. I'm too busy with my job. You only worked part-time, so you wouldn't understand my struggles.
You're right. I wouldn't understand the struggles of someone who dumped their kids on their second wife while cheating with another woman.
What?
Just moments ago, Mike's face had been flushed with anger, but now the color drained away, leaving him pale.
Cheating? What are you talking about?
Did you think I didn't know? I was aware of everything. Mike's lips trembled.
If you knew, why did you act normal? And now you want a divorce.
I did it all for the kids. Since the doctor told me, I thought I'd never have children. But by marrying Mike, I became a mother to Rick and John. Mike's affairs, his verbal abuse, the kids' disrespectful behavior. I can't count the number of times I thought about getting a quick divorce and leaving. But I stayed because I loved those two boys. So, I decided to endure until Rick finished compulsory education, no matter what.
No way.
Unbelievable.
I turned towards the voices and saw Rick and John standing there. Their faces were even paler than Mike's.
Mom,
I don't expect anything from you. I don't even want an apology, but from now on, I'm not here. There's no one to do things for you for free anymore. Rick and John stood there, looking awkward and silent. I turned back to Mike. You're still cheating, aren't you?
Huh? Well,
Not denying it immediately means he's admitting it. If you agree to the divorce right now, I won't demand alimony from your lover.
what?
On the other hand, if you refuse, I'll go to her and even to your workplace. So, which will it be? Mike was deep in thought. Sweat beaded on his forehead and trickled down his cheeks, dripping onto the floor.
Are you really never coming back?
Tears welled up in his pleading eyes. Absolutely not.
She can't do any housework at all. She doesn't work either. There's no benefit to marrying her.
Mike, stumbling over his words, pleaded with me. He still didn't understand how wrong his thinking was. What do you mean by benefit? You need to understand that you shouldn't expect benefits from family. What did you ever give me? All I got was suffering.
I am sorry.
Don't expect from others what you can't provide yourself. 13 years of resentment slipped out. Mike screamed and then agreed to the divorce. He filled out the divorce papers I had brought without protest. The divorce was finalized soon after. As for alimony, he agreed to pay it in installments. Incidentally, his lover dumped him right after the divorce.
I only found you attractive because you were taken. Now you're just a single old man.
Mike, usually full of self-confidence, was devastated by this. Hearing that he was without benefits and unattractive from both me and his lover was a considerable shock for him. Even though it was just the truth, he couldn't accept it. This shock affected his work, causing him to make frequent mistakes. Both kids seem to have changed a bit. Rick, in particular, is desperate to change. He was harshly dumped by his first girlfriend, who told him, "I don't need an outdated boyfriend like you. I've reached my limit, so I don't plan to get involved, but I hope he succeeds if he can." However, given how things are, it will probably take a lot of effort. Now, I've started a new life near my hometown. It's my first time living alone since before I got married. I decided to quit my previous part-time job and look for a full-time position near my new place. It might be tough at my age, but part-time work left me with too much free time. Though I had been overworked before, having nothing to do didn't suit me. If I can't find a full-time job, maybe I'll take on multiple part-time jobs. Or maybe I'll find a new hobby. That's what I've been thinking lately.